Okay, so I ended my last video very quickly because I had hit the 10-minute mark and I didn't want it to be too long because last time it wouldn't load. But maybe it's good to do it this way of like, okay, so that's the astrological moment that we're in right now. And now let's talk a little bit about the remedies. Like what are some of the ways that we can move through this with grace and learn from it and gain awareness, as opposed to letting it take us down. So one thing is in this Cancer moment, we're on this Cancer Capricorn axis, but we're having this Cancer moment of it because the sun is in Cancer, and Mercury is retrograde in Cancer. So there is this sense of we can use our intellect right now to process some of the things, some of our own emotional boundaries that we're dealing with. So some ways to do that, I find journaling is super helpful. But just like writing, sort of like reportage, like this is what I did and this is what I felt, is not helpful at all for me. So I find that like if I can just like, riff off of a word or an idea or an image, and really start to get my sort of metaphorical juices flowing, then I can start making connections that I might not be making even just in conversation or in sort of my mind flow of thoughts. So that's one suggestion, especially now that there's so much being revealed of about identity and about justice and truth and accountability. God, I want to talk a lot about accountability, but I'm maybe going to do that in another video. But so right now, today, Saturday, we also had Chiron opposite Juno, and Chiron is our wounded healer. And so Chiron represents like really what hurts us the most. That's really being activated right now. And there's this sort of sense of like, well, are we, like, what is your most vulnerable point? And what are you doing to sort of ease into that healing? Or are you using all of your resources to protect that vulnerable spot? And is there a possibility of softening and looking at things with a little bit more detachment and seeing that there's a thorn in there, and like figuring out, maybe you need some strategy to get that thorn out. As opposed to just like hiding it and this is my pain. And we do that. We are attached to what hurts us a lot of the time. Yeah, I think it just being able to take that step away from the thing that we're protecting the most, and just take a tiny step into vulnerability and just see how that feels, to look at something with just that little bit of distance. There's one other point. So there's also this like abuser energy with Nessus trining the sun. So where we're trying to take care of ourselves, there are also still forces and people that are trying to take advantage of us. And there might be a lot of projection, and just being able to wade through that. One way to see if there's a projection happening is just to question, like, what are the assumptions happening here? Are these my feelings, or are these someone else's feelings? Are these my opinions, or are these someone else's opinions? And just having that moment of self-inquiry can sometimes help to see things a little bit more clearly. So the last thing that I wanted to mention is that we had Venus retrograde also. But Venus went direct last week on the 25th of June. So we have a little bit more, possibly, access to our sense of connection with others and love. And so we can use that as a tool for this sort of self-healing and self-love that we need to be attending to with this Cancer energy. And one of the most... Cancer is a water sign. And in my interactions with Ayurvedic clients, I hear people talk a lot about how, I'm drinking my 8 glasses of water a day. And in Ayurveda, that's actually not the best option for a lot of people. Like 64 ounces of water a day of cold water, usually a day, is maybe not the best option for a lot of people, and their bodies might not be absorbing it. So it's sort of about like quality over quantity. So I bring that up because, your water intake is important, and depending on who you are, you might be actually taking in too much water and exhausting your system, right? And in that sense, and I find with social media, connection, especially in this time of being apart from one another, we may sort of be going for more quantity than quality. And I find myself letting that happen as well. Moments where I'm just, stuck on the screen, trying not to do that. But if you have a person that you can hug, I suggest, instead of 8 cups of water, 8 hugs a day. And if you don't have a person to hug, maybe you have an animal to hug. And if you don't have an animal to hug, maybe you can go find a tree, and it will work. Because what happens when we hug is that we release oxytocin. If we can have a hug for 20 seconds, and you're used to counting 20 seconds now because you've been washing your hands for 20 seconds, a 20-second hug will release oxytocin, which is the connection hormone. And it just allows you to sort of relax into the flow of things a little bit more. And maybe connect with those ancestors that I mentioned on our ancestral river on this Capricorn and Cancer axis. So if you're interested in learning more about some of these techniques, you can get in touch. And please, any comments are totally welcome. Let's talk more, and take care. Okay.